going on, analyst?
What's happening?
How about that slog yesterday?
Yeah, that's a game where you sit back and go, you know what? Had we lost that one, it could have taken a big toll.
What do you mean?
That's a game that ends careers. It ends a lot of different things. So that did not go well, and I just lost you on my phone. So I'm trying to figure out what we're going to say next.
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I don't know what's happening here. He's at TCO Studio, so we'll get the analyst back into the mix. But Pete Bercich, analyst for the Vikings Radio Network, is nice enough to join 9 to noon each and every Monday. Pleasure calling games with Pete all the way back to 2007. And yesterday, as we go with what we do, for this job, I mean, that's, it's people watching it aren't enjoying it. We're calling it, and we're blessed to be able to do those jobs, but still not the most fun thing in the world to call. It's tricky because there's just really not anything happening. And he's right when he says, if you lose that game, it would be a shame because in fact, I'm not exactly sure why he said that, because I don't, really, I guess it would be, if you put forth a defensive effort like that, and we'll see here momentarily when we get the analyst back into the equation, if you put forth a defensive effort like that against Aiden O'Connell and the Las Vegas Raiders, and you somehow lose the game, well, that would be an absolute shame. But I mean, we've been to absolute shame handling school, with the game against the Bucks and the game against the Chargers. It was an absolute shame that we lost to the LA Chargers, especially, given the Chargers were right there for the taking. And it was the turnover situation that reared its ugly head so frequently, so early in the season. And that's really what frustrated me most with the loss to the Chicago Bears was the turnover situation, came back. Now you got 4 Dobbs interceptions, but the 24 gives this year and the 14 fumbles lost, I mean, that is shameful in its own right. Sorry about that, Bud. You there?
Still here. Just technical
and now
issues.
So if you say it's a shame if they had lost, what do you mean?
Well, what I mean is that a game like that, when you battle like you do, and it's so one-sided, meaning as a team, the defense goes out there and plays just, even if you gave up, let's say, 3, you give up 3 points and you still lose, that can be very divisive. It can be, you have half the locker room, the special teams group, and the defense going, holy cow, we took care of our business, but we've got some problems on the other end. And then the emotional toll that it takes, right? You have half the team that went out there and played basically a perfect football game, giving up 0 points, and then you still come away with a loss. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It has the potential of being very, very divisive, and it's going to be interesting to see, how the Raiders respond and how Antonio Pierce. We'll find out if Antonio Pierce can lead this team, because he's got a lot to manage here with a loss the way that they went about it. I mean, their offense produced 0 points. They didn't have a back.
Right.
They didn't have the new quarterback per se, or any other issues really to blame things on. So that's a big blow to that locker room over there.
The look on your face yesterday, early in the game call, when right out of the gate, I'm going through here are the Las Vegas Raiders, AFC West, with new coach Antonio Pierce. He's 2-2. He beat the New York teams, took L's against Miami and Kansas City. And by the way, Pete, did you know 7 years ago, Antonio Pierce was the head coach at Long Beach Poly High School? The look on your face when I said that was priceless. It was reminiscent of when you coached linebackers for the Minnesota Vikings. And well, you tell the story, because in 2002, you wanted free agent Antonio Pierce, and then where does it go from there?
Well, he was one of the free agents that we could afford, right?
Yeah.
And he would have been in our price range, so wanted him badly, and it's the whole thing. You have to work with pro personnel. You got to work with a lot of different groups
and the
to
owner.
bring a guy in. But I absolutely loved him, and I would love to have had him on the team, but it just didn't work out. I think we got outbid, and so he went elsewhere.
That's not the story you told me. No, the story you told me was when you would get your free agency list of linebackers because of the former.
Oh yeah, no question. He was the first guy we could afford.
Well, thanks to the former owner, God rest his soul. You had to cross off the first 10 names.
Yes. No, you get the free agent list. I remember getting the free agent list, and the first top three, because they go by grade, right? By the pro personnel grade. Top three guys were, had X's through them. I'm like, why do they, what's the deal with that? And they're like, well, we can't afford them, so don't even bother watching film on them. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll start with number 4.
Yeah. And it just shows you how crazy the world and life and serendipitous things can be. You ended up with Greg Biekert. Do you remember that it was the game at Champaign? So it's your first game as linebackers coach. It's my first regular season game calling for the Vikings, and we didn't even know each other then. And Greg Biekert, he might have had 16 tackles. I mean, he was unbelievable in that game.
Yeah, that was the game that Willie offered the ball. They throw the ball, and Willie offered jumps. He's going to pick it off, and then he comes down, and the ball goes right over the top of his hands in the end zone. You remember that one?
Yeah, and I also remember the Willie offered spear on Marty Booker very late in the game. I
remember having to down at Champaign. You had when you went down from the press box or from where the coach's box was.
Yeah.
You go down and you had to go outside in with all the fans to go down to the end zone to go in the locker room. And I remember just getting doused with beers and fans, MF, and the whole way. It was great.
Yeah, and how about this? Down memory lane we go. Another skull story for a potential Friday night. One time on KFAN with Rosie HOF. 2003. All right, Mike Tyson's the head coach. And, those pregame interviews that I now tape with O'Connell on Fridays or Saturdays, and we play them right before the game on Sundays. Well, with Tice, and led by Hagan, and Mike and I had known each other, believe it or not, even before I got to Minnesota through
of course,
horse racing in Northern California, because he was friends with horse owners when I called races at Bay Meadows and Golden Gate Fields. And somehow Tice knew Tom Rathman incredibly well. And Rathman was always at the races. So I met Mike Tice, in the mid to late 90s at Bay Meadows. And what the end was growing up in the Washington, D.C. area, my single mom for entertainment would take me to Maryland Terrapins football games in College Park because it was inexpensive, and Mike Tice was the quarterback. And I think his backup was Frank Reich. So and
I think John was probably on the team too, John Tice.
Correct. And so therefore that was, kind of like the icebreaker for me with Tice. So I knew him before he got the job and I got the job. So, we would tape this pregame interview 90 minutes before the game, and it would be at a goalpost in an end zone. All right, so we would stand outside to get the ambiance of the crowd and stuff like that. Well, when we were out in Oakland, and this is perfect because we just played the Raiders. We were out in Oakland, and you guys had won 6 in a row. Then you lost to Flutie, and Antonio Gates had his first National Football League touchdown. Ben Lieber was on that San Diego Chargers team. Well, things were starting to get a little weird in that roller coaster season. Up to the Raiders game, remember, Mike had guaranteed they would beat the Oakland Raiders.
And then we had a tight end that we had just cut that they had signed, and I can't remember his name.
Leroy Glover.
He took exception
Andrew Glover,
to it. I remember during stretch, he didn't even stretch. He just stood there and yelled at us the whole time.
Really? And see, that's before social media. You had to really work to find stuff like that.
Well, one of the things, pulling into the stadium in Vegas, and there were some people out there tailgating. It just brought me back.
Yeah.
And Ben Lieber and I talked about it. To when you pulled in to the stadium in Oakland back in the day, and the tailgating. And the tailgating was so big, so intense, so elaborate, and so rowdy. They had police towers, like these scaffoldings, every I don't know, let's say 500 yards or let's say 100 yards, dotted throughout the parking lot, so the police could sit up there with their binoculars and just watch for a riot or for a fight or for a fire or for whatever.
Yeah.
but it was the most intimidating stadium to pull into because the Raider fans were absolutely nuts.
Well,
it was like Halloween. It was unbelievable.
So the tight end, I can't remember who was chirping at you before the game. That's one thing, but Charles Woodson, HOF, he did his Friday press conference and had caught wind that there was a guarantee on the other side. And Woodson was like, who in the bleep does this guy think he is? I mean, we've lost 8 in a row and we got problems here, but A, B, C, D, and E. All right. So that ended the week of talking before the game. So they were all wound up that Tice guaranteed the victory. And so we're doing the pregame interview by the stanchion and we're 15 feet from Raiders fans, including your guy in the gorilla costume. All right.
Yep.
I didn't know the guy in the gorilla costume could talk. I mean, I thought part of being in like a mascot thing, you don't talk. That's just part of the bit. But no, he talked, and I think he even took his head off and took the head thing off. And they were screaming.
Came out of costume.
They were screaming at Tice with the worst, most hateful language I think I've ever heard. Some people threw some things. So
sure.
We had to stop the interview and then walk into the tunnel and do it.
But you got to experience that end zone. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh,
what they call it, the black hole?
Oh, the black hole.
Isn't that what the name of it was? When you'd walk out there to go warm up.
Well, do you remember the gorilla?
Thousands of fans just sitting there and they dog cuss everybody that walked out. It was unbelievable.
You remember the gorilla?
Yes, I remember the gorilla.
Well, he was the leader of the black hole, so he had a front row seat.
The gorilla costume's still the greatest costume ever made. When in doubt, go to the gorilla.
So it's I was just texting with Nordo, who's starting to come back from Vegas. I think he's at the airport and listening to the show a little bit, just like wondering what the vibe was. He's like, "Is it Mullins mania?" And I'm like, "No." It's the majority of things that I'm seeing here on social media or with the 64686 is you shouldn't be happy about that victory because it was so ugly. And secondly, it doesn't matter what happens the rest of the way because the team has no chance to win in the postseason. I don't know. I mean, I can't cast my gaze that way. I understand what people are saying with the way things looked yesterday, but it's strange things can happen, man, when a team gains confidence and catches fire, right?
Well, yeah. And what are you supposed to do? Sit there and go, well, we're not going to win the Super Bowl. We have no chance to win the Super Bowl, so why don't we just give up now and get a better draft pick? Mm-hmm. I just can't stand that mentality.
Right.
You just get yourself in the postseason. You never know what can happen. You can make a great run, even if you don't win the whole thing. It's at least you still make a great run. And oh, by the way, there are a lot of teams out there. You make that run before the year before maybe you go to the Super Bowl, or that sets the table for getting to that spot, right? And you're trying to build a winning program. You're trying to build a program where every August when these guys come in, they're saying we are going to the postseason. And you can't just all of a sudden pick a year to do that. You can't just be terrible, get a bunch of first-round picks, and then say, okay, yep, this is the year we're going to do it.
Right.
It's not that easy. It doesn't work that way. You've got to build that. You have to build that mentality. You have to build that experience. And whomever's out there at quarterback, you still have 4 more weeks to get them straightened out and get the offense to be the best that it can possibly be. And here we go. You want to make it in the postseason. You don't know who's going to get hurt. You don't know what's going to happen. You may make a little bit of a run and have some fun with it. And then again, that builds. You go on the road, and if you're a wild card team, you're going on the road in the playoffs and playing some really good football teams. That's great. That's a great experience for everyone, the coaching staff, the players, everybody. And if you want to build a Super Bowl winning type franchise, that's how you do it. You don't just draft well and then say, okay, this is the year we're going to do it. No, it doesn't work that way.
Lastly, about a minute, you get it all. It's KOC was non-committal on the quarterback for Cincinnati. Predictable, understandable. It has to be Mullins after yesterday, I would imagine. So with Dobbs, I mean, with all due respect, man, but can he just not pass? I mean, is that just the bit?
I think he's just having trouble reading, and the first throw to JJ, that was almost an interception. That was got a hand to the Raiders. They basically trapped him. They showed him one thing, gave him another, and he bit it.
Wow.
He thought he was going to get a deep third corner and just going to have some cushion there to get the ball out there and a good, easy 5-yard gain, and it wasn't there. So that part of it's just not clicking. And again, the timing of this offense just is not clicking.
Right.
He's at the top of his drop looking for the breaks. And I think that's maybe one of the most underestimated part of offense is just the timing of the passing game. Mm-hmm. It's so well orchestrated and practiced, and the timing has to be perfect. And for whatever reason, that rhythm in the passing game just is not there for him. Whatever reason that is.
Yeah.
But the passing game, the offense, it needs new blood. I just think the time has come. So we'll see.
Good job during the slog yesterday, and I'll see you later today.
Yeah, you enjoyed my Roderick Teamer take, didn't you?
Phenomenal. Not only did I enjoy it, it made me laugh, and I haven't stopped thinking about it.
I could see you out of the corner of my eye, like start laughing, and I wanted to start laughing, but I wasn't going to unless you did. But that was
You're the best.
Just the best.
I'll call you later. Pete Bercich, analyst for the Minnesota Vikings Radio Network. The sideline analyst is Ben Lieber. Let's listen back to his chat with KOC around the
KFAN, the Fan.
If you want to chime in on what's happening, your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and day rates apply.
Nacho man. I want to be a nacho man. Nacho Lieber and KOC following the 3-0 dub yesterday.
All right, you guys, we're down here in the Vikings locker room with head coach Kevin O'Connell. And coach, let's start with this defense. I mean, this defense has been playing lights out these last several games. And let me just go through a few stats for you. 173 total yards, given up 56 yards of rushing. They had 3 takes. Now, that last one was on that desperation drive. 4 sacks. But let me just talk about this. The way that they finished, the fourth quarter alone, 3 3-and-outs and 1 take if you don't look at that desperation drive. Yeah. How are they able to stay so dominant throughout this game?
Yeah, first and foremost, they've been playing, winning football, really finding their groove within the scheme, thriving with guys in different roles. But Brian Flores and his staff just continuing to kind of, find ways to allow guys to live in their spots within the defense, maybe on the depth chart, but guys are doing a lot of different jobs. We're asking guys to do a lot of different things, and it's causing some confusion for the opposing offenses. And what we talked about as a team this week is no matter what it would take to win this game, the bottom line is we weren't going to flinch. We weren't going to lose the turnover battle, and we were going to find a way to win it, no matter how long it took, no matter if we needed extra time, whatever it was. And our defense was able to pick up a pretty banged up offense that struggled most of the day, and really take us home there all the way through the end.
One of the key contributors to the defense was Ivan Pace Jr. And I had a chance to talk with him right after the game on the field. He called himself, he's got that dog mentality. I'm sure you've heard him talk about himself in that manner, but he really does. He plays with this intensity and this chip on his shoulder. And, for a young guy, a rookie, to go through a long season, hit that bye week, and to come out with such energy and fire and intensity, what have you seen from the growth out of him in just his rookie year?
Yeah, I think, Vikings fans should know he's calling the defense. He's got the green dot in Jordan Hicks' absence. He's, basically an extension of Flo out there on the field, as are some of our other veteran players around a rookie that we trust with that green dot, and he just continues to answer the call, flying around the field, physicality. He's one of the best young rushers at the inside linebacker position I think there is in the NFL, but then, the instincts to drop, understand kind of his void and vacancy that he's responsible to cover, and then make that play at the end. Just remarkable out of Ivan Pace today. And he just keeps on getting better and better. And when you find an undrafted free agent like that comes in and has this kind of impact on your team, it gets you really excited about the future of the player. And I couldn't be more excited about IP.
You talk about the offensive struggles. Part of it, offensive line was a little spotty in some of the protection stuff. There's a few drops out there by wide receivers, but ultimately you make the decision to go with Nick Mullins. What went into that? What was the calculations of going with Mullins in that situation?
Yeah, I just thought kind of the way the game had gone, we wanted to come into this game and use, Josh. I thought some of our run hits with him as a threat of the zone read and some of the quarterback, keeping aspects of some of those plays gave us a spark enough to try to stay efficient. But when you lose JJ and you lose Brian O'Neill and then you lose Alex Madison, and you're really looking at it like what we need right now is somebody that I know my trust in Nick Mullins, no matter how many reps, and he did get some reps this week to prepare him. But my trust in that moment is, he's going to go out there and take great footwork, fundamentals, see it and throw it and give us a chance to maybe get 3 or 4 of those first downs that he did to get us in range to get whatever amount of points it was needed to win the game. And when your defense plays like that, we came in saying we wanted to win the turnover battle. Offensively, we did not turn the football over. We weren't nearly as effective or explosive or efficient as we wanted to be. But in the end, it's a great lesson to you about turnovers. Even when it's as hard as you can imagine to try to move the football offensively, you're having, it seemed like every drive we had another guy going down. And the group just overcame. Defense never flinched. We got a couple timely special teams plays as well. Total complete team effort where you're going to have to lean on maybe one phase over another sometimes. But I'm just proud of the way the guys handled it. They kept battling. There wasn't an ounce of negativity when we were struggling on offense. Defense just kept going and going and going and gave us a chance to win our 7th football game.
I know a lot of the fans are going to wonder now going into next week with Dobbs having the performance that he did, Mullins coming in and basically leading the game-winning drive and giving a little bit of juice. How does this decision and how does his play at the end of the game impact your decision on who plays quarterback next week?
Yeah, we're gonna take a look at it as a staff, but the decision's going to be made based upon where we are right now and what's the best thing for us to win moving forward. And got a tough opportunity, tough challenge going on the road again to Cincinnati. Shorter week, and we'll put some time and energy into that. But we're gonna put the player out there that we feel like gives us the best chance to win based upon this week and our game plan and everything that goes into that. And we'll keep you guys posted on that. But happy to get our 7th win. Sometimes they don't always look as pretty as you'd love as an offensive coach, but in the end, proud of our defense, proud of our team to come on the road and get our 7th win.
Well, Coach, a win is a win. You're right. You got to enjoy all the wins when you can get them. They're tough in this league. So congratulations. And we'll see you on a short week in Cincinnati on Saturday.
That's right. Thanks, Ben.
All right, guys, back to you.
Nacho with KOC following each and every game before Kevin addresses the media. That's a really, really cool thing that we get here with the Vikings Radio Network. Speaking of wins, the Minnesota Timberwolves have won a lot of games compared to the Owls. Chris Finch, coach of the Wolves.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris. Paul Allen, what's going on?
Hey, PA, how are you doing?
Pretty good, man. Good luck tonight against those Pals. Last night, did you get a chance to have some etouffee on Frenchman Street?
I made it to one of my favorite Italian spots down here, though.
Oh, very cool. Would you care to share a name?
So in the warehouse district, nice little quiet, small spot, mostly inhabited by locals.
Is this time of the year, is New Orleans and Bourbon Street and Frenchman Street, is it like super festive down there this time of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think early December. There's a bunch of conventions still coming through. Then they're getting ready for bowl season down here. They got a bunch of bowls that come through here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very nice holiday town. Actually, they do a good job here.
Chris's inclusion 9 to noon is courtesy of Prize Picks, and we also thank Second Harvest Heartland for its assistance over the last couple of years of chatting with Chris weekly during basketball season. And last week I asked you the same question that I'm going to ask you now, and it worked out okay last week, but then Anthony played 4 minutes over the weekend. So is Ant okay?
He's still day to day. His dad hip contusion, and it's, causing a little bit more problems and pain than we thought. So we'll try to, went through shoot around today. We'll try to get him a little bit loose and see what happens, but it's hard to predict right now.
Boy, that just had to really catch you guys off guard, right? Because I just know how cautious and conservative coaches and medical staffs can be, not only with players, but specifically players of his variety. And the last thing you want to see is somebody get out there and play 4 minutes and have to leave, right?
Yeah, well, he was fine. He was everything went well. He kind of landed awkwardly, and that just caused a reaction in and around the muscle, almost like a spasm. So, because whenever you're carrying that type of injury, you're pretty much in spasm almost all the time, just because your muscles are trying to protect themselves. And that, that's the unpredictability of, when you play. Like that's I think the thing we worry about with all injuries when people are coming back. It's, we kind of feel we know where, or we certainly know where the injury stands in its recovery, but it's the unpredictability of the nature of the sport, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, the things that you have to do in the game that you can't necessarily predict, and you don't know how you're going to react when those things are taking place. So,
right.
But tough kid, and I know he wants to play, so he's trying his hardest.
It and that's in my estimation kind of an underrated, low key positive facet of the record this year. And I mean the defense has spoken for itself. Specifically, well, pretty much the entire season, but like the last 4 or 5. I mean, teams are hanging 90s on you in the new age of the NBA, which is really cool. But underrated and is when the guys face turmoil. And I'm not saying a reason to stop trying hard, but human nature is human nature, is they overcome obstacles and find ways to win. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I think that's the sign of all good teams. Of course, we have depth. We have a lot of good players, guys that, have had experience contributing to winning situations. One of the things that we say is when the season starts is we expect to win, and that's not an overconfidence approach. It's more of it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. We need to go out and expect to win, and you do everything and as you would always do it, and people have to step up in those situations. And in the league, it's just a reality. You're going to play a handful of games without some of your best players. You're going to be up 20, down 20, tough travel circumstances, injuries, as we talked about, illness, etc. All these things happen all the time when you play 82, and you just got to have the mindset that you got to expect to win regardless of what's going on.
This will be your third versus the Pels this season, I believe. Third, right?
Yes, third. Yep. One home, one away.
Yep, 2-0 against them so far. Beat them in a spine tingler, blew them out one time. C.J. McCollum in the mix now. I know it wasn't in the mix for at least one. What's challenging with playing the Pels on the road?
Well, I mean they're healthier too. I mean they've got Trey Murphy back and McCollum back, and that gives them shooting, and that shooting around Zion is extremely important because he lives in your paint and you can collapse a defense, and now you kick it out to really reliable shooters. With McCollum in particular, to go along with the shooting is his ability to create his own offense. He's one of the best mid-range dribble game guys that they have, that's in the league and has been for a long, long time. And both he and McCollum, both he and Ingram can go get their own basket at any time they want. So, along with Zion. So they have the ability, they have a really good roster. It's deep. When they're healthy, it makes sense. They all complement each other really well. They've been playing well. I mean, they got, smacked pretty hard by the Lakers in that, in-season tournament semifinal, but before that, they've been playing really well. And this is an extremely dangerous team in the West.
And Valanciunas, their center, he's really impressed me this year in that he puts up that numbers. Now he may be just a giant defensive L here, and I don't know about it, but he puts up that number scoring and rebounding. And he's not a big shot block guy, even though he blocked 3 against the Lakers. But he plays minimal minutes. You know what I mean? He's not like he'll get up in the 30s occasionally, but he'll play in the high 20s. I always felt that he would play a little more. Does any of that surprise you?
Well, I think what they do is when they get to Zion at the 5 in their second unit, in the hopes and oftentimes have had a lot of success in creating a lot of matchup issues for teams' second unit. So therefore, sometimes Valanciunas will have extended moments on the bench, particularly if that unit with Zion at the 5 is doing really, really well. They do have the luxury of having different types. They can play small, they can play big. They're a little like us in that regard. Although we don't tend to go small very much, we still can. We feel confident if we have to. These guys, will probably tend to go smaller to change the complexion of the game, more than we would. And that, unfortunately, is going to affect Valanciunas' minutes. But, yeah, I've always been a fan. I've always thought he's had a winning impact. He's not a shot blocker, but he's still a big body. He clogs up the paint. He's super smart, gets a good shot contest, and he's always, a monster on the glass. You got to keep him off the offensive board.
What is basketball like in New Orleans? I know you coach there.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. This is a Saints town. This is a LSU football town. But they when the team's exciting like they are now, they'll come out and support them. But it's a crowd that really kind of likes. They love the ooh-ah play down here. They always like Zion fits the market well because he has about 3 or 4 of those a night.
Do you how well do you happen to remember the New Orleans Jazz? Remember the New Orleans Jazz with Pistol Pete Maravich?
Yeah, I think it's when I got into watching basketball as a fan, I think it was just at the time that they had right around the time that they were leaving town. I do remember the team being here and then them leaving. But I was really young at that point, or I like to think I was pretty young. But so I don't remember a ton of it. But the people here still will hang on to that history. Pistol Pete, a legend at LSU, a legend here in New Orleans, and that's part of their legacy of basketball in this city.
Yeah, they're down south. Back in the day, there were some duos that were noteworthy in kind of basketball immortality, like Maravich and Goodrich. Then for San Antonio, you had finger roll guy George Gervin, the Iceman, with Larry Keenan. Those two were super tough. But why I'm a quasi elite New Orleans Jazz mind is because when I was growing up in Washington D.C., I had the opportunity to go to a basketball camp and get an autograph with Truck Robinson. I don't know if you remember Truck Robinson.
I do remember Truck. But when I saw Truck play mostly as a Knick.
Yeah.
I remember him as a Knick more than as a.
Yeah, I think he was a Bullet.
Bullet, yeah.
Yeah, but then he ended up with, I think he was with the New Orleans Jazz at some point. And so anyway, just kind of followed him from there. This is Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. They take on New Orleans this evening. It's on the dedicated Timberwolves channel on the iHeartRadio app. So download that now, courtesy of Prize Picks, Daily Fantasy Made Easy, Second Harvest Heartland, and 2harvest.org. You said it last week, and now it's come to fruition. The in-season tournament was terrific. I mean, the atmosphere in Las Vegas this weekend, there was a lot going on. U2, Garth Brooks, some big rodeo, belt buckle fest, and then the Vikings and the Raiders on Sunday. There were a lot of people there, man, for the Lakers. Well, I know it's 3.5 hours away, but the Lakers and then the championship game and both the games really. But the in-season tournament, man, was super cool.
Yeah, it was a hit for sure. Players were very much into it. You saw the competitive fire being stoked within our league. I knew once it got to Vegas, the NBA was going to do a really good job with the product. It looked different. It felt a little different. My only complaint about it, I think, I do believe, we talked a lot about how hard the guys played. I think we do a little bit of a disservice to ourselves because I think our guys play hard, every night. I mean, there's schedule losses and there's times when things, guys don't always have it in an 82-game season. And for sure, there was a heightened sense of awareness and attention to detail and game planning and all that kind of stuff. But, I didn't necessarily love the narrative that these games were so much more meaningful because guys played hard or harder, because I think guys play hard every night. I really do. But I did in general, it's like kind of nitpicking. I feel like, Adam knocked it out of the park with the concept, and I'm sure they'll look at everything and they'll kind of keep tweaking it to make it even better and better.
But don't you think, and I agree with you, but I mean, I don't know who the bottom guy on the LA Lakers roster is after Austin Reeves. Their bench ain't that great, but let's just, not Vanderbilt, but I don't know, you can go all the way down to Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, or whatever.
Yeah.
But because you know how these guys are wired, man. I mean, LeBron behind the scenes was selling. You don't think this guy could use $500,000? You don't think it'd be great for this guy making this to get $500,000? I mean, that is such a subtle, low-key, cool, motivating tool, and he played it.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I think the prize money, of course, that was a great carrot for everybody. It's particularly, I think they brought up in the broadcast that one of the end of the roster guys for the Lakers, I'm not sure, was going to increase his salary by 46% on the year by winning the tournament. Which is, and that's good. I mean, and that's part of the sports. Like this is about winning games and making money. That's what this is all about. We're pretty transparent with our own guys and saying the same thing. Like, we win games, everybody benefits. This is kind of a microcosm of that.
And Max Christie, I think, is who you're talking about. Max is not related to Doug, right?
No.
Okay.
I do not believe so.
Okay. Well, I've seen him score, and I haven't seen him put like the two fingers in the air and shake his hand as he runs down the court. But see, that could be the perfect example. LeBron's like, look, you don't think Max could use a 40% increase on his salary in one game? And by the way, he's not even related to Doug. So let's get out there, win this thing for Max, and let's help the Max Christie lineage. All right, last one. Who are some of the best defensive teams in the history of the NBA? Because like your defense is super good, and like in the NFL, you go 85 Bears, 2,000 Ravens. Like, who are some of the great defensive teams in the history of the NBA?
Well, I think you got to start with some of the great teams. Period. I mean, I think the '86 the '86 Celtics probably didn't get enough credit for their defense. The physical nature which they played, the length that they had on the front court. Jordan's Bulls in their heydays were just defensive juggernauts. And when even more recently, when Golden State was in their prime, in the beginning of their prime in particular, when they had Bogut as a guy who could and Green, those guys were anchoring their defense. I mean, they were really good. They were top 3 in offense, top 3 in defense, and we add it all up, you get championship and dynasty run. So you don't have to look far. I mean, I'm sure there's been great defensive teams that can't score, but by the same token, you still got to score in the league. So all those teams that I mentioned were able to do both at a really high level.
And those are teams, but in closing, top of the head, lockdown defensive players all time. I mean, I think Michael Cooper, Bruce Bowen, T.R. Dunn, and believe it or not, little Fat Lever, Lafayette Fat Lever, gave Magic Johnson, who was twice his size, the most problems of anybody I've ever seen play him. You remember that?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's guys, that there's certain types of defenders that bother certain types of offensive players. And sometimes it might be counterintuitive. Sometimes smaller guys can get up under big guys and just play their space, make everything uncomfortable. You got to throw Dennis Rodman in that list of lockdown guys too. Mm-hmm. I mean, he would do it all. He could move his feet. He could beat his spot. He could beat you up physically. He could flop with the best of them. So, it's interesting to go back and look. It's a lot of these multi-tool guys. Those guys could guard a variety of positions. That you were just talking about.
All right, my brother, get the money tonight. I'll call you soon.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
See you, bud. Chris Finch, coach of the Wolves. I'm Paul Allen. Thank you, Double B. Common Man is next.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or